What up world, this your homeboy WordPlay TJ, and I'm back with another video for you. This time around, I'm gonna tell you why AI generated music is a problem. Stay tuned. So behind the scenes, I've been quietly watching this AI battle that we're going through, this, should we be afraid of AI? Should we not be afraid of AI? Should we protect our music? All the human beings are going to be replaced conversation. And I'm starting to understand what people are afraid of. And for those that don't know much about me, I'm also a computer science teacher. I'm also a music production teacher. And so some of the things that I'm thinking about are based off of the lessons that I teach to students, but also based off of the research that I've done in the industry and experience that I've had around computers in general. So I come at this with an understanding that I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm not deathly afraid of the tools because I'm willing to use them, but I'm also not willing to be led astray by all the propaganda around this is great, you should use this, and there's gonna be no problems. And so let's talk about AI for a little bit. How is AI being used in music? And how can we better understand it? Well, for those that don't know, AI, or at least computer intelligence of some sort, has been used in music for a long time, at least since the 70s and the 80s. Especially once you start getting into digital recording and things like pitch correction or compression or EQ, all of these things, it collects data from the inputs that you give it. So the inputs are the music that you record, the sounds that you let the computer analyze, and then the outputs are, a better sound, hopefully. So it could be things like pitch correction with auto-tune. It could be stem separation, things that kind of give you every element that you can play with in music production. So in the simplest terms, the computer is collecting data, which is the input, and turning it into an output. But there's this new thing that's popped up, and it's called generative AI. And it still uses inputs and outputs. According to MIT, it's taking all of this data and just kind of synthesizing it, but it's producing something new with it. It's actually creating a new version of the sound. It's maybe an amalgamation of all the sounds that are compiled, but it also could be a new iteration of the sounds that it's learned about. So generative AI takes it one step further than the basic AI tools and starts to be creative, you could say, on its own. But I think the primary issue is that where is this data coming from? Companies like Suno have been under fire for collecting lots and lots of musical data. They've been sued by companies like UMG, and they're under fire for just having massive amounts of musical data in their database. And that's the problem with generative AI. The question is, whose copyright are you taking in order to make these new works? And as a hip hop artist, I completely understand the conversation around things like sampling. Sampling is considered taking somebody's copyrighted work, manipulating it, and putting it out as a new representation of that work. So this is really interesting. I'm even seeing some overlaps of copyright infringement when it comes to the art world. And I was curious about this only because the two things kind of overlapped, right? So in the 70s and the 80s, hip hop is coming to prominence and they're using samples of other people's work in order to create new music. But at the same time, Andy Warhol, a prominent pop artist, is using other people's likenesses and commercial brands, labels, and imagery in order to sell his commercial art. So some 40 years later, the Supreme Court has ruled in 2023 that an Andy Warhol painting of Prince, created from a portrait that Lynn Goldsmith created was not fair use. And I'm reading directly from a Smithsonian Magazine article. Justice Sonia Sotomayor said, to hold otherwise would potentially authorize a range of commercial copying of photographs to be used for the purposes that are substantially the same as those of the original. So basically, she's saying that, like, if somebody creates a copy of somebody's original copyrighted work, then we're just in a situation where we're able to sell copies commercially and not for the sake of making art. It is my opinion that as much as humanly possible, you should try to respect the owner of the copyright in order to get the permission to do things like create new music by sampling or creating new artwork by, creating a portrait or a painting or collage or something like that. So I digress from my tangent. I really want to talk about musical copyright and what that really means for folks that don't really understand it. So musical copyright is not like a painting or a portrait or something that's a lot more straightforward. Musical copyright has two parts. The first part is the composition, and with the composition, that means it's the musical and the lyrical parts of the work. So the underlying instrumental and then the writer's words on top of it. The writer is not always the singer, by the way. This is a very important distinction. Sometimes the person that sings the lyrics is not the person that wrote the lyrics. And then there's another part to copyright when it comes to music. It's the sound recording. And the sound recording is also called the master recording, right? It's the final piece. It's all that stuff weaved together in order for us to create what the music listener hears. And this is why musical copyright is complicated. Whenever you sample music, you have to clear it with two different groups. You have to clear it with the group of people that have created the composition. It could be one person, it could be many, but you also have to clear it with the master recording owner. And in most cases, that could be a major label. It also could be an independent label or a single individual. Ultimately, you have to go through multiple steps in order to get a license, a sample license, in order to use that work. And what I just explained to you is the number one problem with generative AI music. AI generated music is collecting samples of the music, the lyrics, the master recording, all of these different copyrights, putting them together in order to make something new. It's sort of like Frankenstein. And it would be one thing if it were learning from this music in order to create a new sound. But instead, what you sort of hear, or what people have experienced, is the generative AI is taking little bits and pieces of other people's work, and then it's just kind of shoehorning it into a new piece of media. So here's a recent example. So producer K Fresh uploaded some music to Instagram, is producing an instrumental, and that instrumental was used to train AI software called Suno. And I'll talk about Suno a little bit more later. Here, I'll show you a clip. And then after he produced that song, this is what happened next. So Timbaland, one of the greatest hip hop producers of all time, in my opinion, is now creating a new work that sounds almost identical to K Fresh's work, with no credit, no attribution, no calling him on the phone and saying let's do business, no regard whatsoever for K Fresh's work. And that's absolutely bonkers. And so in turn, K Fresh has decided to sue Timbaland and Suno and hold them accountable for what they didn't do or should have done in the first place. So I know there's a lot of conversation about how Timbaland has, sort of supported this company called Suno, and I promise you, I'll get to them in a second. Timbaland has supported this company, Suno, and has gone as so far to berate artists on social media.
AI is ruining music. Whatever. Go ahead and cry me a river, since Timbo Stamp is on that too.
Y'all crying about AI taking your spot, but your songs barely mix. Why would we train it on that?
And then come back and take that back after he was called out by Young Guru, who is the mix engineer and a longtime producer for Jay-Z. He's since apologized to K-Fresh, and he's since apologized to music creators in general, but I don't know if I buy it.
I know we got off on the wrong foot before, but I think it's best we try again.
You saw the Instagram live. We need more conversations like this.
He's still in bed with Suno. He still believes in this product. And he believes in this product not because it's something special, but because I believe that Timbaland is just lazy. I don't think that Timbaland has to be this lazy. There are people that would beg and plead in order to work with Timbaland right now, even through all of this. And I don't believe that he has to work that hard in order to find hardworking people to work with him. And so here's a point that I want to make about being lazy. Suno is an AI software company that makes AI generated music. And their CEO, Mikey Schulman, has gone on record saying that it's not really enjoyable right now to make music.
Just want to build, let's say, a company that makes the current crop of creators 10% faster or makes it 10% easier to make music. If you want to impact the way 1 billion people experience music, you have to build something for 1 billion people. And so that is first and foremost giving everybody the joys of creating music. And this is a huge departure from how it is now. It's not really enjoyable to make music now. People enjoy
Why did you say
Suno.
that?
It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of practice. You need to get really good at an instrument or really good at a piece of production software. I think the majority of people don't enjoy the majority of the time they spend making music.
Do you not think that's like running? It is hard to run. It is painful to run. You don't particularly enjoy it, but you love running. And you get good at it, and you get better at it, and you speak to the runners, and they love running.
And I said, to who? What musician out there is not enjoying making music? Because if you're talking about the everyday person, I believe that music should be accessible to a lot of people, but I don't believe that people should be making music if they don't enjoy it. That takes a whole community of individuals who make it their livelihood, make it their lifestyle to create music, and then just undermines that entire community. It says, oh, you don't have to like this in order to do it. It's sort of like how Instagram democratized photography. You don't have to go out and learn how to do photography. You don't have to learn how to use film and those types of things. You just have to have an iPhone camera, and then you're good. You're a photographer now. If you're not interested in photography, why would you even pick up an iPhone and try to do it for a profession or for a hobby? It doesn't make sense to me. And so Schulman is totally off base, and I believe that him being off base is a problem, and it's absolutely problematic for the rest of the music world. So is this even legal? Is this something that people can actually do? Well, Suno and other folks argue that they can. And I'll talk about that because they claim that they're using their model in order to generate new ideas, like I was talking about earlier. They're sort of just, kind of taking it, learning from it, and then they produce something new. But I promise you that there's lots of legal cases that would argue differently. Cecily Moran has wrote for Mashable.com and talked about Suno, and Suno admitting that their copyright claims are fair use. So in this article, Suno basically defends their use of other people's music by saying that it's fair use. But we need to understand what fair use is in order for that to be true. According to the US Copyright Board, things are more likely to be fair use if they're nonprofit, educational, based on factual work, so you're reading a fact or something about history, criticism, and or parody. And that even skirts the line, right? Because even if you claim something as fair use, that doesn't stop the copyright owner from taking you to court and say, prove it. So is it legal? In my opinion, generative AI music is not legal, and we need to know a little bit more about what's happening behind the scenes. What data is it training on? Whose data is it training on? And how is it creating new works out of that data? So ultimately, I think you asked, what can we do about this, right? We got to get to some type of conclusion in this situation. And in my opinion, I think it's important for us to fight back. So in 2024, Senator Adam Schiff introduced a bill to Congress called the Generative AI Copyright Disclosure Act. Very long name. I think it can be better, but anyway, I think that legislation should be reintroduced in this session of Congress. And I believe that you can help with that. I need you to email your senators, email your representatives in the House of Representatives, email your state legislators if you need to. Somebody needs to do something about generative AI, and we need to revise the copyrights opinion on this. I also encourage you to join music organizations like United Musicians and Allied Workers at weareumaw.org. It's important that we work together and collaborate in order to push legislation through that is beneficial to musicians, and you can do that through this organization. I'm a member, and you should be a member too. So that's it. I want you to tell me what you think about AI music down in the comments section. Let me know if you think if it's wrong, if you think it's right. Yeah, what's your opinion about this type of music? And until next time, it's your homeboy WordPlay TJ. Peace. We ain't felt this. Loose in a minute. Little ice in my drink, feel smooth when I sip it. No rules, put the tip in. Not looking at you, no clues when I fit in. Tunnel vision when I came in the game. All natural, no tame.